So on Tuesday, we had the West Virginia primary. It was both the Republicans and the Democrats. So Paula Jean Swearengin versus Joe Manchin was happening on the Democratic side. And on the Republican side, it was lunatic Don Blankenship, who's a coal baron who was convicted of multiple crimes, including fraud. 29 people died because he skirted regulations at his coal mines. And he's the person who did the ad saying, you know, Mitch McConnell, China people, he's helping the China people and is taking money from his China family. And he said, I'm Trumpier than Trump or something to that effect. Well, that guy lost. Don Blankenship lost to some establishment Republican or more establishment-minded Republican. So that's a good thing. I mean, it's bad either way. Blankenship is shitty. I'm sure whoever the fuck won is shitty. He's a Republican in West Virginia. And he's an establishment Republican at that. But Manchin versus Paula Jean, what happened? Well, Paula Jean was defeated. Manchin got 69.8% of the vote. Paula Jean got 30.2% of the vote. So, listen, man, I know because of Justice Democrats and things I've heard that she worked so goddamn hard on her campaign, and she put everything she had into it. And you have to understand something, guys. We're talking about regular people. When you talk about Justice Democrats, when you talk about all these politicians who are taking no corporate PAC money, these are regular people who put their lives on hold. You know, oftentimes struggle because, what, can you afford to take a fucking year off work like that? Most people can't. And that's part of the problem with the system, is that only the mega rich really are in a position where they could even run for office in many respects. So Paula Jean, regular person, puts her life on hold, decides to run to basically try to create a better future for the people of West Virginia. And she poured her heart and soul into this. And in the end, it didn't work out. But listen, there's never any guarantee that you're going to get it right the first time. In fact, if there's any guarantee, it's that you're going to get it wrong the first time. If somebody gets it right the first time, it's such an aberration. Because we do have such a gigantic bias in this country towards the establishment politicians who are already in power for a variety of reasons. Name recognition is one reason. You know, Manchin has his name recognition in West Virginia is just, it's everywhere, you know, so everybody knows the Manchin name in West Virginia. But then also, you know, media coverage. If you already are an elected politician, I mean, it's a given that you get a hell of a lot more coverage than any up-and-comer, especially an up-and-comer who's a committed outsider, who's running an outsider campaign, and who is not going to go along to get along with the Democratic establishment. So, but all of that, listen, all that, let's put that aside for a second, because what's the real reason that she ended up losing? Well, for that, you go to the amount of money they raised. Joe Manchin raised nearly $6 million, and he spent about $2.3 million. Paula Jean Swearengin raised about $180,000. $180,000 versus $6 million, and she spent about $125,000. So, listen, to get 30.2% of the vote, when you raised $180,000 and your opponent raised $6 million, that's not fucking bad, dude. That's not bad. So you have a media that's permanently biased against you and refuses to cover you. We covered her on the internet. But the thing is, man, listen, when I look at the demographics for Secular Talk, for example, West Virginia is one of the bottom states in terms of viewership for Secular Talk in that state. You know, like California, New York, and Texas have the most Secular Talk viewers. West Virginia is towards the fucking bottom. So it's hard. There's not many Secular Talk fans or TYT fans in West Virginia. So it's hard when we're some of the only outlets covering her and online is covering her, but that's not, you know, let's keep it real. In West Virginia, a lot of people get their news and politics from local media. Well, they just didn't cover her in any serious way. They just didn't do it. So when the media is not covering you, when you're an outsider with no name recognition, and when you can only raise $180,000 and corporate Joe Manchin, and that's exactly what he is, make no mistake about it, corporate Joe Manchin raises $6 million, well, that's a fucking problem. And he's, of course, swimming in money from fucking energy companies, and he's swimming in money from Wall Street, he's swimming in money from for-profit health insurance companies. He is massively corrupt. Massively corrupt. And, you know, listen, the crowdfunding model is the model because it's the only way, small donations, that's the only way that we can be 100% sure that the politician is actually going to represent you. But there's also the downside of you just simply can't raise as much money if you do the small dollar donation approach. But listen, if she raised $180,000, he raised $6 million, and she still managed to get 30% of the vote her first time around, that's nothing to be ashamed of. That's nothing to be ashamed of. And I don't know what her plans are for the future, but I think if she were to run again, she would do even better. And then, I don't know. Would it take 3 election cycles, 4 election cycles before she could actually beat him? Maybe. But I do think that all things being equal, and that's the point, is that all things were not equal by any stretch of the imagination. This was a 100-yard dash where Manchin ran 90 yards in front and turned around to Paula Jean and said, okay, you could start now. But all things being equal, Paula Jean Swearingen wins. So it's just, we have to figure out a way to make all things equal. Get the media coverage up to the point where she's given a fair shake, you know, and the fundraising total, at the end of the day, she couldn't swim out of the deficit of him having all this name recognition, all this coverage, and all this money. But it's a goddamn shame because, listen, man, we told you it's absolutely necessary to take out Joe Manchin. It is necessary to take out Joe Manchin. And there's another story that just came out yesterday that proved it even further. Guess who one of the Democrats is that's now come out in favor of Gina Haspel? The literal torturing war criminal who ran a CIA black site and then destroyed evidence. Destroyed evidence of, all the torture. Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin is for Gina Haspel, a torturing war criminal. So this is what Joe Manchin does. He agrees with the Republican. He voted for a majority of Donald Trump's cabinet picks. You know, this guy just voted for Wall Street deregulation. You're telling me that the hard working people in West Virginia are itching for another corporate tax cut and another financial crisis brought about by deregulation that allows the financial elites to run wild on Wall Street? They don't fucking believe that at all. But corporate Joe Manchin raises more money, gets his name out there more often, gets reelected, and that's what they get. They get a politician who in no way, shape, or form represents them. So Paula Jean fought her heart out. She did her absolute best. Given the fact that she raised so little money and got so little coverage, it's a respectable showing. And, I hope she runs in the future and she eventually takes out Joe Manchin. I know it's hard. I know it's an uphill battle, but it has to be done. It has to be done because either we sit back and watch our disgusting oligarchy in this country continue to screw regular working people and the world with our militarism, or we stand up and we fight back and we get the country that we deserve. We get a social democracy that stops bombing innocent people. Paula Jean Swearingen would have been a guaranteed vote to make this country a social democracy, to help working people, to end war, to build our infrastructure, to get people jobs, to get clean water, because she knows that the water's poisoned in West Virginia. So she would have been a vote in that direction. We didn't get it this time around, but the fight continues.